wealthiest countries in the world. So they're going to start paying, and they want to pay. And we had a great meeting about 1 month ago. That set the stage for what happened here, but it's very important. So I want to thank Scott for being here. I want to thank Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. You are doing a good job, Howard. Am I right when I say I really don't want deals? I just want the paper to get sent? Right? It's true. I don't know if this is on television. Yeah, it's always on television. SBA administrator and a great person, cabinet member, a friend of mine for a long time, Kelly Loeffler. Kelly, you're doing great. She's small business, right? She only does small business, but when you add it all up, it's the biggest bank in the world by a factor of about 10, right? She's doing a great job. And director of the White House Faith Office, Jenny Korn, who's also amazing. Thanks, Jenny. From the earliest days of our republic, the steady compass of faith has guided the strong hands of American workers, builders, and entrepreneurs like really no other. Our country was founded by pilgrims and believers, and every generation since, Americans of faith have built our communities and forged new industries and enriched our country by millions and millions of people and ways. John D. Rockefeller, J.C. Penney, Charles Goodyear, Truett Cathy, and frankly, we have people I could name right in this room sitting here that their names are every bit as big as that. They were inspired by their love of God, and now the proud tradition continues with all of you. And this group reminds us, as a nation that prays is a nation that prospers. And you see that. I think one of the reasons we went so bad is they really wanted to take God and religion out of your lives. And there was nobody to, look up to. There was just nobody. It was, we were freewheeling, and we can't freewheel. Now we have to bring religion back into the country, and we're starting to do that, I think, at a very high level, Paula, a very, very high level. You see churches are starting to fill up again. Under the Trump administration, America is prospering and America is winning like never before. Our country is back. So I was in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and then a month ago we were in Europe with all of the NATO countries, European countries, and plus Canada. And almost everyone said almost the exact same words. They said, 1 year ago, your country was dead. Terrible term, but that's what it is. Your country was dead. We thought it was finished. And now you've got the hottest country anywhere in the world. It's true. Is the hottest country. Did you see they found $25 billion of essentially profits last night? They said, where did it come from? It came from management, but it came from tariffs. And it came from, good business skill. And I've always made money. Now I'm making it for you people. I've had good days and bad days, but in good days and bad days, I always found a way to make money, and we have to do that for our country. But and we did 188 billion in Scott just now, 188 billion in tariffs, 188, and we haven't even started yet. That's only for cars and steel. We actually have barely started. The economy is roaring, business confidence is soaring, incomes are up, prices are down, and inflation is dead. It's dead. We have a bad Fed chairman, really bad. If he would lower the rates, and I tried being nice to the guy, it doesn't help. He's like a knucklehead. No, he's a knucklehead. A stupid guy. He really is. Each point, think of this, each point costs us $360 billion. Billion. 1 point, $360 billion. 2 points, you got $700 billion. And we're way high. We're at 450 or 425? 450? And how do you go borrow money at 1% when the Fed has you at 450? And, it's not that easy. I get angry at them. Why are we paying so much? Because he's got you up at this number. And we should always be the lowest. Now that we're doing great, We have no inflation. Think of it. Our stock market hit record highs. Everything's hitting a record high. We're really running good with no inflation. And we should be at 1%. We should be less than 1%. I think Switzerland is the lowest at like 0.5%. We should be lower because without us, there's no world. I don't want to sound overly aggressive, but without us, you have no world. And we put our country on solid footing. We had a man as president who was the worst administration, worst president in the history of our country. We've had some bad ones, but he's the worst ever. What he did at our border can never be forgotten. 25 million people allowed to pour into our country, all unchecked, unvetted, murderers, gang leaders, gangsters, people that you don't want in our country under any means, terrorists. We have many terrorists in our country, and we're watching them close. Tom Homan, by the way, is doing a phenomenal job. Kristi Noem is doing a phenomenal job. We had last week, it was reported, nobody, not one, even I don't know if I believe that number, but it's done, the numbers are done by liberals. So they said, did you know that? They said we had nobody, zero, cross our border. It's the first time that ever happened. Zero. Did you hear that? It's like crazy. But we have people from mental institutions, insane asylums even. That's a mental institution on steroids, essentially. But we had people coming into our country. We can't have them. And we have to get them out. But we can never forgive this administration, this past. And I'm okay with administrations. I mean, I can go through a Democrat administration, say, hey, look, they worked hard, they tried hard. But the things that they did to this country, we can never, ever forget it. From the rigged elections to the border, to the transgender for everybody, from men playing in women's sport. Do you ever take a look at some of these records? There was a long-distance race, a marathon, where they had a great female runner, a number of them, but they had one in particular, and they had just an average male runner who had transitioned. He won the race at the end of the day by 5 hours and 14 minutes. They waited for 5 hours. The weightlifting records are better, though. The weightlifting records are better. You know, the way they took a record that hasn't been broken for 18 years. 18 years. And, you know, they'd add a quarter of an ounce on each side of the barbell. And they'd just, a little tiny piece of stuff. She'd go up and she couldn't get it up. And this guy comes along. Have you lifted before? Yes, at a low level. He was a low-level lifter as a man, but transitioned. And he goes up to that thing. Bing, 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 bing. Could have done it all day long. Broke the record by 119 pounds. The whole thing is crazy. The swimming records are pretty good, too. You got to see that. I told the story. You had this great group of young ladies, and they grew up with each other because, you know, they sort of swam at the top level. And they were swimming, and one girl was seriously injured. She looked left, and she saw the same girl she grew up with, Kelly, in California. Same girls, you know, that young age, they sort of rise to the top. She looked to the right, she saw the same girls, but there was this giant standing right next to her. And he had transitioned. You probably heard this. He had transitioned. And she'd never seen her before. And when the race was started, he blew by her so fast that she suffered massive windburn. They had to take her. And he got out of the race and he had a little lunch, and then he came back and watched the rest of the young ladies finish up. The whole thing is crazy, and it's so demeaning to women. It's so demeaning to women, but it is what it is. But what they did to this country, and we ended all of that, as you probably know. We ended the woke. The woke stuff is no longer in favor. But we're doing fantastically. Wages for blue-collar workers have surged by the most in over 60 years. Gas prices have reached the lowest level in 5 decades. Actually, we're going to see some really good numbers. We're, you know, drill baby drill, I got to make sure that people can afford to produce the gas. But the gas has gone to the lowest level in decades. And you're seeing $1.99, $1.98, and I saw $1.95 at certain states. Not California, because every time it goes down, they add taxes onto it. You're at $6, $7. They just add taxes. All they do is they keep adding taxes. Terrible governor, doesn't know what he's doing. He may be a candidate, but if you go by success, you can't have him be a candidate. And on Friday, it was announced that the United States Treasury ran a budget surplus. Is that true, Scott? In June, for the first time in many, many decades. Wow. I didn't know that. That's a good one, too. I'm going to have to put that in my repertoire, Scott. But the biggest victory of all came 10 days ago when I signed the one big, beautiful bill into law. Right? And just as I promised, we did something that was amazing. You know, everybody was against it. I wanted it. I know Scott and Howard liked the idea of it too, but it was very risky because they've never done anything like it in terms of the size. It's the biggest bill ever passed, of its kind ever passed, by far. And they were going to cut it into 2, 3, or even as many as 7 bills. And I said, the problem is that in the one big bill, everybody gets something. When you cut it into 7s, there are 4 or 5 of them, or 3 of them, right, Kevin, that you get nothing. All they're going to do is fight it. You'll never get them passed. And so we went with it. I was on a show called Deface the Nation. Have you heard of it? They're so bad. They're so bad. These people, they're so average. But I was on this show, Deface the Nation. Ladies and gentlemen, President Donald J. Trump on Deface the Nation. No, but they're all so bad. But we were on the show, and she said to me a question. She said, what would you call this bill? Would you want to have it called One Big Beautiful, or would you rather see it? I said, what I want is one great, big, beautiful bill. And Speaker Mike Johnson, John Thune, they were watching, and they said, what a great name for the bill. We actually ended up calling it that. We took the great out. I actually liked it even better. One great, big, beautiful. But they said, let's a little bit of a low key. But we got to pass. But we got to pass because there's something for everybody. And there are things that people don't like, but you need them for the country. You know, you have to do some things that are great for the country, but they wouldn't necessarily get the votes. And we got the votes. Think of it, not one Democrat vote. All the goodies that we got, not one Democrat voted in either the Senate or the House. And we're talking about tax cuts and business. I mean, so many different things that are so good, right? Not one Democrat vote went with us, not one. So we had to get almost every. In the House, we got 218 to 2. Think of that, 218 to 2. Nobody could do that. It's never been done. And that says, you know. And we have Rand Paul Jr., who's a guy we call him Rand Paul Jr. because he always votes no. A guy named Massey, always votes no. We had another guy who I helped very, very strongly, helped him with a very personal situation, got him through it. And he voted no. I said, thank you very much, I appreciate it. And then we went to the Senate, and you had, of course, Rand Paul, who always votes no. They call him Just Say No. I think they think it's... No, I think they and you know, I got him elected. I had to go to Kentucky twice to do rallies to get him elected twice. But they forget. A lot of politicians forget. And then we had a couple of others. Susan Collins, she's another one. Just Say No. She always brutal. And we had some people. Tillis, I guess, was a no, right? He was a no. And they said he was brave. He said no to the president, but he resigned the following morning. So anyway, that was terrible, I thought. But we couldn't lose more than 3. We had 3 that said no, and so we won that 50 to 3. So it's pretty close. And a senator came over to me and said, "I can't believe you won the House." Great guy, this senator, Eric Schmidt, who's doing a great job. He said, "I can't believe you won the House." I said, "Actually," so remember 218 to 2. We needed 3, so we could have lost 3. We actually only lost 2. I said, no, actually, the Senate was tougher than the House of the 2. That question's asked to me, who was tougher? I'd say the Senate was tougher, actually, amazingly. It shouldn't have been. We had a slightly bigger margin in the Senate proportionally, but it was brutal. It was, they said, sir, we have 12 hard no's. You know, a hard no is not recoverable, right? This was at 2:30 in the morning. Mike Johnson called up. It could be 20, but it's at least 12. So could you call them, sir? I said, what time? I said, 2:30 in the morning. And we have to win, right? We can never give up. The people in this room, right? You never gave up. Mike's supporter right from day one, and her husband with a bad damn back, right? How's his back? Is he okay? Every time I see him, he's got a bad back. But he's got a lot of cash, so. A lot. He's got a lot of cash. But no, they're great people. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. You were there right at the beginning, you know, always was there. But we have a situation where we call up these people at 2:30 in the morning, and I called up. I got along with them all great. I liked them, but they're tough. You know, they're congressmen. When you're a congressman for 20 years or you're a senator for years, you're smart and you're a survivor because you go through all sorts of hell. But I called up Congressman. I said, Jim, hi, Jim, how are you doing? And he said, fine, sir. I said, family's good, yeah. He said, sir, you have my vote. I never said what I was calling about. I said, I do, thank you very much. But how do you know what I'm calling you about? Well, I said, sir, I've been your friend for 2.5 years. You've never called me during normal hours. So I assume that if you're calling me at 2:30 in the morning, you're not calling me to ask me, how's the family doing? I said, yeah. So, pretty good. So I called up everyone. I think everyone with the exception of one had to speak a little bit. But I call up, sir, you have my vote. Thank you. Sir, you have my vote. Think of that. And we got 12 votes in a matter of, I called back 20 minutes later. I said, you got all the votes. That's spirit, right? That's spirit. They wanted to maybe hear. They wanted to have a little love. You know, the sad part is that some of the best people are the people that don't get any publicity because they go with something because it's good. So a guy like some of the people I'm talking about, but some of the people where you didn't even have to call, they vote yes, 100%. You don't have to waste any time with them. You don't have to beg them, come on, you can do it, come on, let's have lunch, let's have dinner. And then you have other guys that want you to suffer. I mean, some of these people that I just mentioned, whose names I just mentioned, you got to go through hell. And the ones that are really good and they love the country and they're doing right. I mean, what's the alternative? You know, the alternative here, you're getting the biggest tax cut in history. And with the Democrats, you're going to have the biggest tax increase in history. Now, we could go into 100 other details. They're equally as crazy. So I said, so what's the difference? So you're going to say no, and you're going to have the biggest tax cut in history this way, and you're going to have the biggest tax increase the other way, and you'll probably end up in a depression, because if you ever did that, it would be a shock to the whole world. That's what happened in 1929. I said, so you're going to vote for the other side? Well, sir, I'll do what's really appropriate. You know, they're losers. But you have that. Really, they're grandstanders, you know. You have grandstanders, and you have them in every business. And the Democrat has far fewer. They're grandstanders, but, you know, the one thing about them, they have bad policy. They're evil people in many ways, but they stick together. You don't have it where you don't have, I don't want to use too many names, but you don't have a Mitt Romney in the midst who makes you suffer. You don't have some of the people that I mentioned who make it so hard. They make it so hard. And the alternative is one of two things. You can either get all these things and make the economy strong, or you're going to literally have perhaps a depression where you people so rich, so beautiful, so will be totally busted. And let's see how long your wife stays with you. You're beautiful. She'll stay with you for about 3 weeks, and she'll say, darling, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore, darling. I'm leaving you. I said to one guy, he's a very, very unattractive man, but he's smart and he's rich. And I said, you better hope we get this thing passed, because your wife will be gone within about 2 minutes. He said, you're right. But so we had a tremendous success, and it gives you the biggest tax cut in American history, the largest spending cut in American history, and the largest border security investment of all time. And again, we're doing great on the border. I almost say, why do we need it? We have such good numbers, but you need it. Ultimately, you're going to need it. I built hundreds of miles of border wall. Without that, you could have never had the results that we had. But to lift up the American family, we increased the child tax credit and made school permanent. We made it all permanent, the school choice. And we expanded school choice, and for every newborn child, we created what's called the Trump accounts. And this was Michael Dell. I don't know if Michael Dell's here, but Michael Dell, well, you tell him I mentioned his name, because he would call me for 3-4 years. I didn't know Michael. I just know he's a great success story and a great guy. That's all he talked about, was the account where you put $1,000, and as a baby is born, $1,000 into an account, and you let it be invested by, I guess you pick out some good money determinant or fund or index. And I guess at a certain age, like when they're 30, goes earlier than that, but when they're 30, they're supposed to have like $75,000. That would have a huge impact on their lives. And it could even be more than that. So that passed. And it's funny, that was one of the easiest things we had to get passed. Can you believe it? I thought so many people loved it. They actually call it the Trump accounts, and I didn't fight for that name, right? I didn't fight for that. I said, that's a very great honor. But Michael Dell was amazing. That's what he said he's going to invest billions of dollars doing it for children. He's going to put a lot of his money into it. But even more importantly than the economic success, we're restoring the spirit of our country. America is once again an optimistic nation. We were so down. It was depressing. We were so down. That's why I ran again. I got cheated. They rigged the election. But I said, if I didn't think I won, I would have never run. Because that's like a poll, right? You lose, you lose. It's worse than a poll. But I saw the lack of spirit in this country for 4 years. It was a dark, horrible place. And for people of religion who were arresting your pastors, they were arresting if you went to church and you had a service outside. And the reason outside, because you had the COVID. And you could go outside. They'd arrest everybody for even having the service. I'll tell you, religion took a big hit because of the way they treated all of us. And we now have a confident nation, an optimistic nation, and we have one nation under God, and we'll always keep that term.